Each and every podcast of the Optimize You studio is sponsored by Optimize You Evansville. At Optimize You Evansville, we help you take control of your health, performance, and vitality through cutting-edge hormone optimization, peptide therapy, athletic recovery, weight loss, and sexual health solutions. Whether you're an athlete looking to maximize recovery, someone striving for sustainable weight loss, or just looking to feel like your best self again, we used advanced diagnostics and personalized treatment plans to get you there. Our science-backed approach helped optimize energy levels, mental clarity, muscle recovery, and overall well-being. Because feeling great isn't optional, it's essential. You ready to elevate your potential? Let's get started today at Optimize You Evansville, where normal is not optimal. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the Better Human podcast on the Optimize Evansville podcast network. Tonight, we have two very special guests, are very dear to me, my own two of 3 children, Alyssa and Sonny Shelton. Here we go. Dakota, we're on episode 4 and we've peaked. This is it. This is the best guest we're ever going to have right here.
Not like he's biased or anything.
Right. Well,
No bias,
we'll
bias,
see.
of course.
The Shelton kids,
Yes.
Alyssa and Sonny. Alyssa, age 19, Sonny, age 17. Sophomore in college and junior in high school.
Yep.
And they are going to tell us all about the troubles and values and positive energy that they get as teenagers in today's world.
Yep.
It's definitely interesting, that's for sure.
To say the least.
You guys have seen a lot, and as far as growing up aware of these kinds of things, as kind of elder teenagers,
Yeah.
I don't know how much really of it makes sense to you, and obviously there's values that kind of change throughout your adulthood, and
Yeah.
you'll think one way today and think another way, 10 years from now, because of places you're at in life. But Alyssa, we'll start with you. So just tell us who Alyssa Shelton is.
All right, well, I'm Alyssa Shelton. I am the second child of this man right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm currently in the works of doing pre-law with a minor in criminal justice at Murray State. Did athletics all of my life and then decided to focus purely on studies to graduate a whole semester early at Murray.
There we go.
I'm in a sorority and I've always felt like I've been 40 years old.
40. That's not 4.
40.
40
Yeah.
years old.
No,
Yeah.
40.
Yeah. You've always been the, in the, the groups that we've always hung out with. You've always been the mature one of the kids for sure.
Definitely.
And definitely probably too much mama at times, but yeah, I mean, probably a little bit
definitely.
over mommying
There
of
we go. Hey.
probably a little bit over mommying of your peer group, but everybody's got to have one of those, and you
Yeah.
certainly have, kind of kept bad things from happening. I'm
Yeah.
sure that I know about and probably
Yeah.
don't want to know about. So as well.
No, definitely. High school was pretty smooth sailing. Didn't
Yeah.
really hang out with anybody. Just wanted to hang out with my dad's friends because I didn't understand the whole concept of who dated who or who wanted to run around. I just wanted to put my head
Yeah.
down and get into school, and I got in the school that I wanted.
Mhm.
Solo went for Murray State.
Yep.
Pretty. Enjoy it very much. Studies are going pretty good. It was definitely different getting into the atmosphere of you have newbie adults that have all these different privileges and things like that and haven't really had the maturity to grow into their own shoes as an adult. It's still very much that, no offense to teenagers out there, but it's definitely a childlike teenager mentality with a lot of adult privileges. So that first semester getting there, you're like, just everything's thrown at your fingertips. You don't know what to go on. You're doing a lot of things you probably shouldn't be doing. And you're also trying to figure out what those friend groups are, who to jump in with, because you're starting a whole new school. Can't really run home to mom and dad to check in with them.
Sure. You're not too far away. You can always run home to
Yeah.
mom and dad.
Right.
But your experience at school, being in that mindset and starting off, what were the, kind of what were the difficulties that you kind of ran into, or what did did you feel like you struggled socially, because of that mindset?
Most definitely was struggling socially, trying to figure out, because I went to a few different social events and like after school would experience some of the partying things. It was just not my scene, but with going into that new age group of being freshmen in college and being fresh away from mom and dad, the whole appeal is to stay out late and do a lot of different decision makings that it's very easily to get distracted from why you're there, why you're in college. You're choosing to go. You're choosing to further your education and to become a productive member of society in that way, in shape or form. And having all of those temptations kind of blinds you from the end goal. So that first semester you're on college, it's really you're being thrown into the deep end and you're having all these things going on, but you also have to figure out how to get out of that and to really lock in on what you're there for, what you want to do, and really focus on your studies, because your studies will slip up real quick when you start spending a lot of time with your friends and things like that.
And you've witnessed that in your peer group, right?
Oh, yeah.
The semester comes, fall semester or spring semester comes around,
yeah.
and there's a few missing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people didn't come back. So mom and dad said no more. We're not paying for parties. We're paying for this. So
Right, 1000%. The friend group, you have about 200 different people that you want to hang out with as soon as you go in, and then as soon as spring semester rolls around, it comes down to about probably 10 or 20.
So what is campus life like now? I mean, we live in a very divided time.
Right.
And college campuses are definitely a kind of epicenter for a lot of those cultural mashes,
Right.
especially in somewhere like Murray, Kentucky, which is a small town.
yeah.
There's probably a bunch of old values there.
Right.
A bunch of hometown people probably go to
Right.
Murray, just because they're fortunate enough that I grew up right down the street from them.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so what is that culture like there? And not just, I mean, you can speak of Murray, but I'm sure it translates to, Murray's just like a microcosm of everything else.
Right.
So what's the culture like there?
So the big appeal is because it's quiet. I went to several big schools, and it's just, I'm a small town girl. I like the small town environment. It keeps everything able to focus in better. You have to go make fun with what you have. It requires you to be creative. It's not just there for you. And with it being a college town, it's very much known for its high Greek life performance, and with that comes different things. So you have a lot of people that are community service driven, wanting to hang out with friends, but you also have that friend group that also wants you to help be there to better yourself. You have those that want to hold you accountable and grow into whatever career you want to grow into. And with mine in mind, it's really focusing on study. So there's a whole environment wrapped around with whatever you want to follow. If you want to go and do college just to do college for parties, you have a friend group for that. If you want to go to college for study based, you always have someone that wants to go study and things like that. It's really just a matter of finding a balance, and you can very much identify who doesn't have that balance pretty quick.
Pretty quick, yeah. It's kind of telling. But so the day to day, you kind of you have your classes, you have your study time, you have some some clubs that you're involved
Right.
with, so you kind of go through all those things. And we'll stay away from all the political controversial stuff that you swear that goes down there. But so the adjustment to that, I mean, I can say hopefully objectively that you seem to have adjusted very well. I mean, and like any child, you struggled when you first got down there.
Right.
But kind of our deal when you went down there was that for the first month, 6 weeks, you're there. You're just
Right.
going to stay down there and get used to it,
Right.
Where I wanted you to be exposed to those weekends away and what goes on those weekends, and then see how you dealt with it,
Right.
And if you partook a little bit, then you partook a little bit,
Right.
It's just part of growing up, but not surprisingly you didn't, or at least to my knowledge you did, and it's fine if you did, but
Yeah.
I think that was an important step for you in particular, because again, not a real social butterfly in high school, not a real, so a lot of, and not that you were a homebody, it's just that, we you and I are tight, and
Mm-hmm.
it was an adjustment for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that you you've you've done well. You've
Mm-hmm.
adjusted well. You get to the end of the semester like we're at now. And you're like, I'm ready to come home. Just I'm gonna
Yeah.
come home every weekend. Or whatever,
Right.
which is great. But just you know, I think that what you've experienced up to this point and the
Mm-hmm.
foundation that you've laid for yourself allows you to do that. There's none of
Yeah.
this FOMO stuff. You're not
Right.
like you're not missing out on anything.
Right.
You're there for X. That's your job.
Right.
And so that's what you're there for. And if if I don't have to quote unquote work this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm gonna go take a vacation. So and that
Right.
vacation isn't home or wherever it is that you want to go to. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
very cool. So what made you pick law?
So it's actually a really funny story. It started off hanging out with my Granny, which is my dad's mom, and we would go and have sleepovers as me and Sonny whenever mom and dad would go out, have a date night or whatever, and her and I would go watch Snapped in the big bed.
Snapped. Yeah.
So, and Snap, for anybody who doesn't know,
I don't know.
is
Yeah, I don't know if you should have mentioned this on any kind of law school entrance
Well-
application.
Not the
or anything
entrance
like
exam.
that.
Definitely
Right,
don't
yeah.
put that on your-
Right.
It's basically just a show about couples that lose it and just murder each other.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. it's
There's no
great.
better way to put it.
Right.
But that's what really sparked my interest in wanting to do something because my family's in medical field, some way, shape, or form, nursing wise, and I don't do bones cracking. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that was a big deterrence. And then realizing from many years of practicing on my mom that I'm really good at arguing.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Hey,
you will.
too.
You'll argue. Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
definitely argue and defend a point to the to death. Actually,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
better
no,
word
I
to say
will-
it.
So
So-
firsthand.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your brother
Got
agrees
that.
with you. So
Yeah.
No, I found out that I have a really good knack for it, and I'm very passionate about helping people in the way that I know best.
Yeah.
Nursing was a big no-go. Surrounded by,
yeah.
I just
Right,
never
yeah.
saw the appeal. For anybody who wants to go for it, go for it. But
Right.
I always found that I was always interested in how things worked in the courtroom.
Mhm.
What were the behind the scenes? And then interning at a law office, I had a huge fascination for doing wills and looking at litigation and things like that. For a long time, it was back and forth between wanting to do criminal and wanting to do business contracts. And then I love to read. And the business and contract law, you get paid to do a lot of reading. So I'm super excited about that and work on that. Now going forth, it's just kind of putting my head down and going straight for law school because unfortunately, with wanting to pursue a postgraduate program, you have to really focus on your GPA and things like that. So I learned very quickly that I'd had to find a balance, but you also have to work on making sure you're going out and spending time because it's so easy to get lost in focusing on one aspect or the other.
Yeah. The so you're living the life. You're away from mom and dad. You're you've been out on your own. What do you see as the biggest struggle?
Missing me.
Ah, there you
Missing
go.
the family was definitely the hardest.
Yeah.
Those first 6 weeks were the worst 6 weeks of my life. Trying to just figure out that I can't just run home to mom and dad when I have a problem. I have to
Yeah.
actually sit down and figure it out. I miss seeing my brother and bothering the absolute crap out of him every day. And I more than make up for it for when I come
Sure.
home.
Yeah.
But just really finding a balance. It's so easy to get lost in one way, shape, or form. But you also, as you focus in on one aspect, you have to also counter in the mental health effect. With this generation, we have more of an acknowledgement and understanding of what mental health incapacitates, and it gets overused, and I would say it gets overused. And to really identify what are certain stressors and what you need to find as healthy habits. So just really trying to find those healthy habits to, and then you're also dealing with the friend groups that are going to fall, and you have to accept the fact that friends are sometimes meant to be seasonal. You get through the class with them, and then that's just about it. Or you get through a certain point in life together, and that you just learn to move on. And that, so being away from home from mom and dad, making sure to have a nice balance amongst things, like along with studies, focusing on your mental health, and make sure everything's okay. Because if everything's not okay up here, everything else falls apart around it.
Yeah.
Friends coming and going is really hard. That was one that I've had several sit downs and calling mom and dad about just being upset because I want it to last. I want to hold on to it, but sometimes you just have to let people go.
Right.
at some point you stop benefiting from it, or it's just y'all's time to start and go to your own separate ways. But as of this point in life, I feel much more confident. I'm glad I learned those early on in life, like going away for college and having to experience that on my own and you just got to jump in the deep end. There's no easy way to going into being an adult
Right.
and having to identify everything.
Yeah. I knew early on it was going to be really important for you to go away. You know, in if nothing else, it was, you know, and I will never forget the moment where we had, catch you crying. I'm like, what are you crying for? You know, because you were coming up on high school graduation, and it was like, I don't want to move away. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, look, I don't want you to. I guess my point was, and I probably never articulated it well enough to you, was that I don't want you to be scared of moving away.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to,
Right.
but it's important for you to know that we support you in whatever it is you do. You know, if you want to go to, if you want to go to North Carolina to school, then we'll go to North Carolina to school. You know,
Right.
if you don't want to, that's fine. But I never want you to think that you can't do that. You know,
Right.
and I probably didn't. You know, growing up, you're like, Dad wants me to move away. Like, I don't want you to move away. I want you to not be scared to move away if that's what you want to do. And
Right.
that was what was more important.
I know that looking back at it now that I needed to go away from school.
Yeah.
There was no way that I was going to ever grow into the person that I knew that I could become now. And I'm comfortable with making my own decisions. I know how to identify not smart decisions from others. I know how to look at a situation without my emotions attached to it. I know that there's certain relationships you can't hold on. You have to just let them go.
Yeah.
There's so many different lessons you have to experience on your own that you can't just have. As much as I love you and I love Mom, I have to experience them on my own. I can't just have someone that's going to hold me while I get upset, which is nice.
Right.
But there's certain things you just have to muscle through.
Right. Yeah.
And going away for school has really helped me grow into the woman that I know that I can be.
Yeah. Well, you've done a bang up job of it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But let's circle back to, because you hit on the mental health of all of it, how things aren't up here. If things aren't up here great, then everything
Right.
else kind of falls apart. And those are things that we've struggled with before. You know, we've gone through that. You mentioned SNAP. I mean, there was a time where I was incredibly concerned about how much like
Right.
Law and Order SVU were watching and things like that. Like this is really
a lot.
dark stuff. You know, you really don't need to be watching this all the time. Right, there you go. Case in point. You know. But it's
watching SVU.
right. Yeah. And
right.
and it was,
all this other
and I
stuff.
think that it was a fine example of how what we surround ourselves with, because there wasn't a whole lot else that you were doing. You know,
Right.
there wasn't you didn't have this huge social circle. You had your friends,
Right.
and you had cross country and running and all these other kinds of track and these things that you did. But outside of if we took the pie of the week in hours,
Right.
a large portion of it was dedicated to watching.
What Mariska was up to next.
Right, and shame on me for being like, gosh, she's tough, she can handle it, but it does start to play a
Right.
role in that, and it's what you surround yourself with, and I think that not only translates to things like Law and Order SVU or CSI or whatever it
Right.
is, but it's with everything, right? So it's who your peer group is, what you surround yourself with. If it's that partying group, you're still a developing
Right.
adult, right? You just assume that that's what is normal. If you've grown up around that, you just assume that's what's normal,
Yeah.
and that it's okay until some big badass consequences come
Yeah.
Right.
down, and then you're like, ugh. It's a little hard learning
Yeah.
points, or and some people don't even learn it from that. So I mean,
Right.
it was a thing, because you kind of hit on some of it's not, but it's a very real thing.
Right.
It in varying degrees, and paying attention to that, and it's maybe not so much. I don't I'll kind of challenge you a little bit on people faking it a little bit. I just think that it's more prevalent
Right.
that that people are almost subscribing to it a little bit.
Right.
Not on their own, not on their own accord, but
Yeah.
there's just a whole lot more out there for people to do. I mean, I taught statistics at the university level, and 2 weeks beforehand, if I had 40 kids in class, I would have, 12 to 15, some sort of accommodation letters, where you have to, this person has this kind of, whatever,
Right.
and those weren't things that at least I knew existed whenever I was in school. So it was
Right.
really different for me. So I think it's definitely prevalent. It's definitely out there, and the recognition of it and the way to take care of it are
Right.
big steps. So you have to develop these kind of positive coping skills. You know?
Right. You definitely have to identify. That was probably also a difficult point, is
Yeah.
to identify what was making me feel the way I was feeling.
Right.
You
Yeah.
identify that how you're feeling is not normal.
Right.
That no way, shape, or form should you ever feel bad about yourself in a certain aspect to the point to where it makes you sad all the time.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing that should make you feel so anxious that you can't get out of bed the next day.
Right.
Or something that you just obsess over to the point that you can't. Once it starts affecting your physical health, it's going to deteriorate every relationship around you.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that you finally, through some struggles that
Right.
we went through, you were finally able to kind of recognize that and where that was coming from. And then still maybe struggle with it a little bit, but it's identifiable. You know when it's creeping up on you,
Right.
and you recognize it, and then do the things you need to do to fix it. So,
Right. One of the first things I do is I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel something that I haven't felt for in a while. Okay, what's causing it? And then I'm a big list person. So I'm like, all right, what has changed in my day to day that has started affecting it? Okay, I've started hanging around this group. Probably should pull back just a little bit. Or I've started spending too much time in the library and I'm not going
Yeah.
out and talking to somebody.
Right.
Or you forget to take care of yourself. Because all different things, it could be one thing or it could be 20 different things that's going on that are so minuscule you bypass it till it hits the point where you're like, oh my gosh,
Right.
I need to go check in with mom and dad. Let's start working things out, talk it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I started just getting up and going to the gym. Or I go for a walk. I text my best friend. I'm like, hey, let's go grab lunch. Let's go have a yap session.
Yeah,
if
right.
you will.
Yeah, yeah, because those things are cathartic. I mean,
Oh,
they
yeah.
they help, and even if it's just a gripe session or just something that's really on your mind, and you just need to bounce it off somebody. Sometimes those people are echo chambers, and they'll just rally with you. But sometimes
Right.
they'll say, "Well, hey, Lissa, it doesn't really seem like that big of a deal."
Right.
And those are the friends that you need, right?
Right.
And you're like you said earlier, there's not 200 of those people, right?
Right.
There's 5.
Maybe.
4.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5, right? So in great to be acquaintances, seasonal friends. I like it. I always use the term single serving friends because it's
Right.
from Fight
Fight
Club,
Club,
and it's
yep.
my favorite, my favorite thing.
Best
But
movie of all time.
but it's to this day, there's probably 3 or 4 people, two of them in this room that I feel like I could say, hey, tell me what you think about this.
Right.
Or like, here's what happened today. And sometimes you just want to bitch.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to get it out and just say, okay, I feel better. I don't need an answer. Just hear me out for a second. And, and then it goes on, you go on about our day. So
Right.
I again, applaud you for being able to be emotionally mature enough to recognize those things. And again, you've always been the 40-year-old teenager, so it's
Yeah.
those are really good, qualities to have. And I think going into adulthood now, you'll be 20 this year,
Yeah. That's crazy.
so I think hopefully your self-laid path is going to serve you well.
Yeah, I've definitely hit the point to where if I want an answer that I just call my dad. I'm just like,
Yeah.
hey, I need a reality check real quick.
Right,
This is
yeah.
what I'm going through.
Yeah.
My feelings are getting involved. I don't know how to pull them back.
Yeah.
And then I know that I can go to you or I can go to one of my really close friends and they're going to be like, look, I don't know why you're emotional about this. Like, what does this have to do with you? Or, okay, I understand why you're upset, but let's look at it from, like, a paper standpoint. This is somebody else. What would you tell me? And then I'm like, oh, I'll tell them this. And they're like, okay, perfect. That's what you need to do. And I'm
Right.
like, great.
Well, and a lot of times what I think your age group gets lost up in is that you are, again, it's this underdeveloped brain where you're not, the decision making may be solid. It's the best that hopefully you've gathered positive life experiences in order to
Right.
make good decisions, right? But you also have, not you, but I think age group and probably everybody have this tendency to kind of self-rationalize a lot of things, you know, you know, and then if you write the scenario down on paper, especially an attorney, right? You know, we had
Yeah.
this lesson not too long ago, right?
Right.
You know, so, you know, it is, you know, we write everything down. Here's what I'm upset about. Here's what it costs to fix this. Here's what it's costing me to do this,
Right.
to go this route, you know? Well, to fix it was $50.
Right.
Is it worth our time, effort, and energy and angst and all this other stuff, dude?
With
Like,
the-
yeah.
yeah.
You know, sometimes you just get, all right, well, you know,
Right.
and especially as an attorney, you know, you're going to deal with that a lot where it's like, hey, look, you're probably right on this, but it's not going to be worth,
Right.
you know, kind
Yeah.
of battling it out, you know, pick your battle kind of thing, you
You
know?
definitely have to rework things. Is it worth my time? And I know that I wouldn't speak for the entirety group, but the people that I've interacted with, definitely childish, sort of like bickering back and forth, or a lot of the emotion gets in the way of clouding people's judgment, is looking at it from, okay, but is it worth your time?
Right.
Or did your actions actually result in this behavior being brought upon you?
Yeah.
And if you don't think it did, all right. If you feel the need to tell the person how you feel, if it's a logistical understanding, just confront it, get the problem over with. Or sometimes you just got to say, okay, bye.
Yeah, I get called out a lot of times, you know, because I'll say, what value does it have? You know,
Right.
because it really kind of it really kind of sounds like a derogatory kind of a egotistical way to approach things, but that's just the way that I choose to approach it.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
what value is there in me pursuing X?
Yeah.
And if there's really not, if I'm not going to care about X tomorrow, regardless of the outcome of the situation
Right.
now, then what am I doing? You know,
Right.
you
So
know,
why are we getting so worked up over
so what-
something?
why are we
Like
so-
Right.
we
right.
can't control it. Why are
Exactly.
we getting so worked
Right,
up
yeah.
over it?
I'm saying this and I almost feel hypocritical because I do get upset about things that are just that are almost punches to my ego or punches to my
life.
what I think is right. That's life, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It is, and you just have to look, dude. Just get over it.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
You know, I was on my way home from work today and was ticked off about something. You know, and it was, you know, like you knew things were going to happen. You knew this
Yeah.
was going to be the outcome. Why are you upset about it? And it's just because. So you're mad because you're right.
Yeah.
So why are you mad because you're right? You know, and those kinds of things. And a lot of people can't handle that. You know, as
Right.
an
Exactly.
explanation of things, but that's what it is. You know, so that's how I get over those things. So,
Right.
You know.
Sometimes you just got to go through the motions, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to be mad about it. This is what I've been doing. I'm going to be mad about it for 20 minutes. Set a timer. That timer goes off. All right.
Right. Yeah,
Gone.
it's gone now. Right. Right. Because you know, at the end of the day, it's probably pretty insignificant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on to that. All
But-
right.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks. Jinx.
You're killing it, girl. Sonny Shelton. William
William.
Sonny
Sonny
Shelton.
Shelton.
Yeah.
There we go.
I hope you get up whenever they call William at graduation next year.
I might
I know you
forget.
will. Yeah, you've heard it enough at this point,
Yeah.
right?
I just
It'll be
know I'm after Camden. That's it. That's all I know.
Just follow
Right.
Camden.
That's right. Yeah, just after your friend. So 17,
Yeah.
high school junior, the sole heir to the Shelton throne. You know.
Yep.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only grandchild, only son, only grandchild on one side, and you are the only son left.
Yeah.
So you are it.
Gotta
No,
lock
no,
in.
no pressure.
Gotta lock in.
So tell me, 17-year-old junior in high school, you know, quite the opposite of your sister.
Like I was
Quite
thinking
the
that
opposite
the
of
entire
your
time she
sister.
was talking. I was like, there's
So it has been a privilege, you know, kind of seeing you both come up in the ranks. You know, in high school, I was somewhere in the middle. I was not a popular kid, but I had good friends, and kind of everybody knew our friend group,
Yeah.
you know. But we definitely weren't the cool kids. We weren't the jocks. We were the kids that sit out in the hallway in Latin class, and
Yeah.
you know, and just, you know, that was that. But we did good. You know,
Yeah.
we've all turned out great. We still get together every once in a while. So, whereas Alyssa was the kind of, I won't call her an isolate, but she
Yeah.
was, you know, a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that way.
You are definitely,
No,
you are
absolutely
incredibly
not.
opposite
Definitely
of
don't
that.
think I'm
So,
that way.
so tell me what it is. Tell me who Sonny Shelton is.
Well, I would definitely say I cannot do the lone wolf thing you got going on there. I will tell you, my friends are everything. You know, some of them may not be real friends. I'll figure that out eventually,
Sure.
I guess. But right now, I think I'm in a really good spot right now.
Mhm.
You know, wake up early mornings, late nights.
Mhm.
You know, talking all day, every day.
Mhm.
Everybody around me. You know, I try to surround myself with super positive people.
Yeah.
You know, I got my buddies. You know, we went to the gym today talking about the cathartic yap sesh.
Right.
I was at the gym for 2.5 hours
Right.
today.
Yeah.
And probably an hour of it was actually lifting, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. You probably inherit that from me.
Yeah. No, because it, like
Yeah.
2.5 hours at the gym and then another hour and a half at going to eat.
Right,
'cause
yeah.
Another friend showed up.
Right, yeah,
So we were
sure.
all three of us there, you know, just yapping about
Yeah.
like everything we've all been through. You know, we've all gone through it together.
Yeah.
You know, those are my guys.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that those are like the inner circle, and then I have my kind of inner circle, and then I
Mm-hmm.
have like the outer circle. You know, and there's a lot. I surround myself with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
If they're negative, though,
They're gone.
they're out.
Yeah. You have low tolerance.
Very low tolerance.
Low tolerance. Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
I feel like that's good to have.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'm not to brag,
Yeah.
emotionally mature enough to know when something's not right.
Mhm.
I'm out.
Right.
Like I've been to a party or two.
Mhm.
I didn't like it though.
Mhm.
So I'd much rather just, you know, be with a couple friends hanging out in a basement somewhere. You know?
Right. Well, and a party or two is one thing, but a party or
Yeah.
two where things are going on that you don't,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Subscribe to, then there's that. You know, I'm not naive, and you know these
Yeah.
things happen because they happened whenever I was there.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I mean, those things don't change.
Right.
But it's a again, are emotionally mature enough to kind of know, like, this just isn't my jam.
Yeah.
And you're, you both have a low tolerance for nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, whether that is for some, fear of getting in trouble, fear of getting caught, or just fear of, look, I don't want to be associated with it.
Yeah.
Whatever the
Right.
reason is,
Mhm.
you both have managed that incredibly well. So what is junior in high school, everybody knows Sonny kind of thing. What is it like a day in the life of a high school junior?
Well, so usually my day is pretty early, you know, got to go to school, everything like that. It's not every other day classes kind of thing.
I know.
Except for when it rains really heavy. Apparently school
Yeah,
gets canceled for
apparently
that.
it's canceled when it's light drizzle outside.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Yeah. I'm sure there was some damage. I'm sure there was a good reason for it.
Junior year has definitely been different from every single other year.
Mhm.
I've never really struggled
Mhm.
in school. You know, I've taken advanced classes, never really struggled, but this year has hit me like a truck.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I actually have to apply myself on a different level of like focus, especially doing like calculus and US history, like all this stuff. Like it's hit me hard. ACT took that, got a better score than I did last time.
Mhm.
Still not happy with it though.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna have to retake that.
Mm-hmm.
I got KSA coming up. Gonna have to take that.
What's KSA
It's just standardized testing.
okay.
It's
Alright.
just another like
for the
it's-
folks at home?
for
Well,
the
it
folks
used
at
to-
home.
It used to be called K-Prep, and then it was
Yeah.
called something when you were
Oh,
in school.
okay. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the
So
same
it's
thing.
the what were those called whenever we were in school?
Just-
Was it like the CAT or something?
No, like achievement tests.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
it's
you go.
basically achievement
It's
tests.
just
yeah.
it's like history, writing mechanics, just stuff like that.
Right.
It's just there's a lot of stuff coming up. I got AP tests coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I just have like a lot going on. Super busy life.
Mm-hmm.
You forget what happened yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
Because on top of all the clubs I'm in,
Yeah.
student leadership committee, Y club, student council, student ambassador, intern
Mm-hmm.
right now, will soon to be student ambassador. Those early mornings, late nights because of baseball. I got home at 11:30 the other night.
Right,
Didn't go
yeah.
to bed till 12,
Right.
12:30.
Back
Had
up
to
it. Back up the next
at
morning.
6:00
Right,
for
yeah.
student council. It's
Yeah.
just it's a lot, but I think having that balance, baseball has really taught me a lot of balance skills, like you kind of touched on. Dealing with the failure, dealing with the time management, gotta stress relief, stuff like that. Baseball has definitely helped with that. Baseball is definitely
Yeah.
a passion of mine. It's taught me a lot of life skills, how you just got to have a short-term memory.
Sure.
about things that don't matter.
Yeah.
You struck out, so what?
So what?
Got,
Yeah,
got another
move on.
AB.
Yeah,
Go out to the field, make a
Yeah.
good play, make up for it.
right.
Stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Or don't. You know,
Yeah.
it's part of it. You know, I
Or
think
don't.
a lesson that you and I had spoke of a long time ago was Hall of Fame baseball players. Bat 300.
Right.
Now you're really good at
30%
math.
success rate.
Now how often are they actually getting on base or hitting the ball? Yeah,
3 out of 10.
yeah, 3 out of 10
out of
times.
10 times.
Right. So that's So if you go 0 for 3, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, right.
It's just a bad day. And
And yeah,
yeah,
definitely the love for the game comes from that.
Mhm.
You gotta fail.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
love. If you don't love it,
Right.
you're gonna fail. And you're gonna be like, oh, this game sucks.
Right,
It's
yeah.
not even fun out here. All
Right,
this
yeah.
stuff. But if you love the game on a level that like somebody like I do, you go out to the field. You're like, give me a ball. Give me the ball. Hit it to me. You won't. Like, throw me a strike. Let's go.
right.
After that bad AB or that after the error that you made or whatever, it's
Yeah.
gonna pass. But you gotta make up for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, if it's one thing you guys exhibit really well, it's this kind of grit, resilience kind of thing. And I think that, when you have things like the emotional maturity, when you have things like the selective friend group, the lack of FOMO,
Yeah.
like you don't care about, I don't have a fear of missing out because I don't want to be part of what I think I'm missing out on.
Yeah.
Whatever, if that's how you say
the
that,
only FOMO I ever really get is like a school activity.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
I'm very involved in my school, and I like to pride myself on that. That I'm very involved. I like to help people out in my school system, even
Right.
volunteering, anything. And the only really things that I miss are like when I'm not at a school event.
Yeah.
When I'm not at that game. When I'm not at that literacy night that has like a raffle or something. Like
Sure,
it's just
yeah.
like things like that. Those are the only things I'm really missing.
Yeah.
When I see my friends or whatever posting about a party that they're at or like all that stuff, like I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah.
Now an invite would be nice, but
Yeah,
even
yeah,
then,
right, yeah.
even
yeah.
then, like I know what's
Yeah.
going on there. I'm not,
Right, yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and the invite would be nice, kind of thing. I
Yeah.
think speaks volumes because that's just a natural thing.
Yeah.
Most people want the option to say no, I don't want to come.
Exactly,
But to not be asked is like, well, dang, you asked me if I want to come. Do you want to go anyway? Well, no. Okay, well, those are one things that kind of contradictory what we were just talking
Yeah.
about. But I get that part of it too.
That's my mindset. Your mindset's very different. But
Right, yeah.
I just I don't care.
Right. right. So, both of you have that kind of, that kind of grit, resilience, kind of head down driven, don't really care a whole lot what, others think of you. You have a
Yeah.
goal and you're going to pursue that. What do you want to do? I ask you this all the time.
Loaded
You can't you
question.
can't ever tell me what you want to do. It changes every other week, which it should. You're 17.
It
so it's
used to
gonna
change every other week.
Yeah.
I was pretty stuck on one thing. Then
Yeah.
it changed every other week again. Now it's every day. It's. I think the front runner right now is I want to be social. I want to talk to people on a regular basis, and I'm good with numbers. So I'm thinking like numbers, talk to people, bank teller.
Okay. All right. There you go.
I mean that's
Just
kind of the
start in a
best of
bank
both
and just
worlds.
kind of work your way up. or-
And I'm taking accounting classes right now. I'm
Yeah.
taking management classes right
Yeah.
now. Personal finance. I've
Sure.
done that twice.
Perfect.
I'm hospitality.
Yeah.
Got that done.
Mhm.
All these classes, it's just kind of compiled into one category: money, math, and people.
Right.
So
Perfect.
bank.
Yeah. It's kind of it's kind of wide
Yeah.
open from there,
Yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna make my way up through the bank. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Finance. I mean, I've always seen you as, you've done math, great forever.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's, we always kind of pegged you as like, he's going to do something
Yeah.
math because it's sure not reading or
No,
English or anything like that.
Oh, you get 30
No.
in math, 19 in reading.
Right.
It's-
Exactly.
You're
right.
gonna
It
hit
happens,
that.
man.
Yeah.
When your sister calls you to help you with her freaking trigonometry homework in college.
That
Yeah.
I did last year.
Right.
You're like,
it's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
did this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah.
remember. Okay,
Wait,
thanks,
remind
bye.
me, remind me what that is again.
Yeah. So I mean, you both kind of brought up the concept of failure being okay.
Yeah. Had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you have to learn that the hard way. That is, that's not that's a lesson you can only learn the hard
Yeah.
way, right?
Right.
Because failure hurts.
Yeah.
You know, it's not how many times you fall, it's how, you get up again, and kind of all
Yeah.
these kinds of things. But it's a, you know, I think that, growing up, we kind of preached that to you guys,
Definitely.
like where it
Yeah.
was, you have to, it's okay, And even though I'm the one out there is like, come on, faster, run,
Right.
like in cross country and all those kinds of things, and track and baseball and all that
Baseball,
stuff. You have to putting that into your brain, you have to at least be able to recognize what you're doing,
Yeah.
because you're associating that, that energy,
Yeah.
that encouragement, that whatever
Right.
into whatever. Because, well, and both of you, I mean, both of you dominated Henderson County cross country for, I mean,
Yeah.
A
what?
hot minute.
Yeah, 7 years, 6
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
So it was you in particular found out kind of the hard way about how it is to be that dominant,
Yeah.
and then
You just stop.
you stop
Right.
stop improving, right?
And it's a crushing blow.
Yeah.
When you realize that you've hit, I wouldn't say stop there, but when
Right.
you've hit a peak and
Right.
you don't know how to
past
hurdle
that
that
peak,
peak.
yeah.
Right, yeah. And one of my favorite pictures I have of you is, it's down on the track, and it's like the 3,200, and you're underneath the scoreboard at the high school on the track, and there is
Nobody else.
behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would always ask, "Are you sure you don't want to cancel?" I'm like, "I'm still gonna run."
Right, yeah.
Regionals is coming up. I'm still gonna run.
Right, yeah. But I mean, but there was other people in that race. You were you were so far ahead of everybody
Yeah.
that we get too good,
Yeah.
and now
Right.
we're not challenged.
Yeah.
So it is
Then we-
it is always good to find a peer group or find a competitive sport or something that challenges you.
Right.
You both grew up doing jujitsu. Scott was the first guest on the podcast, and we talked about that,
Yeah.
where
Right.
it was, that foundational mindset
Right.
comes from that, because you're not going to go in there and just tap out everybody.
Yeah.
You're not going to go in there
Yeah,
and choke
no.
out everybody. You're not going to know what you're doing. You're not going to have the advantage all the
Not at
time.
all.
Learning how to fight off your back, or get up
Yeah.
off your back is hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially with somebody like me or Scott,
Right.
laying on top of you, or any of those other guys that
Yeah.
you guys went to class with. So, I think you both have done well in the grit and the resilience part of it, the emotional maturity. Again, we keep repeating that's an ongoing theme, but how do if you were to write a lesson and again, take your time on this. This is kind of a tough one. If you were to write a lesson on how to be like Alyssa or how to be like Sunny, where would you start at?
I'll start this one. I already know my answer.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now that the biggest impact in my life, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
not just, not just blowing my horn to hyping you up or whatever.
No, yeah,
but
yeah. All right.
I will say that the biggest thing for me is like whenever my, life wasn't going my way
Mhm.
or like anything like that, like the gym has always helped me.
Yeah.
Like sweating it out, making like channeling all these things up here, like wasn't going my way, stressful, whatever. Like putting that into lifting weights has like it's always been my thing.
Mhm.
Like that it's just been great. My friends are always there to talk. I get that.
Mhm.
But like nothing compares to, just got heartbroken or whatever
Right, yeah.
multiple times.
Right.
That seems to happen
Poor
to
kid.
me. Oh well.
Remember failure.
Yeah,
Failure.
exactly,
Right.
Yeah. Just got heartbroken, cliche, whatever.
Right,
but
yeah.
like feeling that anger or hate or whatever you want to feel and then putting it into, going to failure
Mhm.
in the gym is just it's a surreal feeling and it's just everything's silent.
Yeah. And
Radio's silent in the gym.
And I think that a lot of people will think of that like, oh, of course he's a gym bro,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, whatever. But you can insert anything, right?
Yeah.
Find some sort of positive outlet.
Yeah.
For guys, for us, it's the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going to the gym with you.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always makes stuff better.
Yeah. So I mean, it's always a, insert some activity that you love that's going to push you, that's going to drive you, and naturally,
Yeah.
kind of increase those dopamines and all these other
Right.
kinds of things that you talk about instead of the falsely elevating dopamine
Yeah.
things.
Right.
The or ineffective or negative kind of coping
Yeah.
Right.
mechanisms, and find whatever that is to help you through the situation.
Mhm.
Because again, if you can if you take situation X
Mhm.
and you can remedy it with 45 minutes of activity Y,
Yeah.
Right.
how important really is situation X?
Exactly.
Right.
You know, you
Yeah.
know, and I think it just and not to say that there aren't big life events and all those. I don't
Yeah.
want to downplay anything.
Mhm.
I'm always afraid that I'm going to like, you know, well, wow, well, what about this? This is awful. Okay, yeah, I get. There's
Yeah.
awful things that happen. I get that,
Mhm.
and there's escalating coping mechanisms that need to be
Mhm.
enforced for that
Yeah.
or discovered. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, if I'm mad, if I'm ticked off or whatever, and I can resolve it with 45 minutes of
Right.
gym time,
Yeah.
go for a run, sit down, read a book, turn your brain off, play a
Yeah.
game, do
Yeah.
whatever, you know, then how important really was it?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and I think that it really helps kind of, again, it's those building blocks of that allow us to cope with it next time,
Right.
Mhm.
you know? So I'm not going to have this big emotional response to a lot of these things. I have this to help me through it,
Right.
you know? So I know that this is a really bad day, but I can go to the gym. And what I do is that, okay, this day stinks, but afterwards I get to go to the gym. I get to go to my gym with you,
Yeah.
or you're coming home, whatever it is, you know? And I can say, and that's going to make all of this seem like nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
So then if that happens at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, the rest of the day I can get through without holding this pissiness
Yeah.
all day long, you know,
Yeah.
because I can say that a simple 45-minute workout with my kid
Yeah.
or a hug from my daughter whenever she gets home, you know, or whatever, it makes this all okay. So this is all insignificant.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, don't let these things, you know,
Mhm.
destroy your joy, you know,
Right.
or take away your pride or negatively affect your work, you know, or something
Yeah.
like that. You know, you still have a job to do, you know.
Right.
There's still important things going on, but man, there's obstacles that come up that are like little distractions
Yeah.
that can really
Mhm.
bother you. So you know, and I think that's, you know, that's a perfect example of that, you know. Again, you know, the comments will be, oh, go to the gym, you know, do that. But yeah, that's, you know, but yeah, of course we do. That's what we
Yeah.
do, you know.
Right.
So that's what we've always done. So what about you?
So I have a few little pointers. One is to know your goal.
Mhm.
What are you there for? College, it is very easy to get distracted. I know that I want to go to law school. Well, law school, they don't give a crap what you did in college. They only
Yeah.
look at that number. That's
Right,
what you
yeah.
are identified. You have LSAC ID number. They don't care about your name. They don't care about who you came from. They
Right.
want to know what have you done to better the community or
Right.
to make yourself stand out compared to the 500 other whatever
Mhm.
or thousands is probably a better way. Thousands of other people.
Mhm.
So identify your goal and stick to it. You're going to have a lot of people that have different values than you do. And sometimes you don't think those values are worth anything, but they obviously mean something to them. So you have to respect what other people want out of a situation. And if it doesn't line up, you need to let them go.
Mhm.
If it becomes to where it's a negative impact on yourself and you do not benefit from that situation, you need to get out.
Mhm.
It's going to suck. There's no way about it. Life is hard. It's not meant to be easy. And knowing that and acknowledging that and wanting to persevere and overcome those obstacles, because if life was easy, it'd be boring.
Yeah, well, and I think that, you know, you bring up some good points there, is that it's still going to suck. Like
Yeah.
it still hurts, you know.
Right.
But if it's not serving you, if it's not bringing value to you, if it is, and you can't identify or be self-aware enough to know that it's not something that you're doing, if it's negatively affecting you, then then it's
Right.
time to cut it loose. You know, it's
There's
just,
no reason.
and it
reason
sucks,
to
and it's
stay.
hard, and
Yeah.
there's going to be hurt feelings, and there's going to be screaming and clawing and gnashing of teeth and all
Right.
that stuff. But it is, sometimes that's what has to happen.
Right.
you
You
know?
have to rise above the situation and I've had to do a lot of this since I started college is how does this benefit you down the road? What are you going to get out of this? Do you value the situation? Are you enjoying what you're doing? Or is this person, this activity, this once in a while thing going to dampen your goal?
Right.
And if it does anywhere close to where you have to even think about it hurting what your future is going to look like, it's got to go.
Yeah.
And life is hard. It sucks. if your emotions are hurt about it, that meant you cared.
Right.
That meant at one point in time it was beneficial. It did work out for you, and you cared about it. So your emotions are going to be upset. So it's okay to feel them, but there's also a time when you need to get over them and just start pushing on and pushing forward.
Right. And that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the little bitty silly things, right? Yeah. So because sometimes people would interpret that as like, why do you have to analyze so many things? Why does not everything is a choice? Not everything is this kind of mind mapping. Should I
Right.
do X or Y? Sometimes you
Yeah.
just do those things, and that's
Right.
fine too. But if it's becoming an issue where it's negatively
Right.
affecting you, then that's when the
Yeah.
decision
No,
has to be made.
I definitely encourage to cut off and blow steam, but be smart about it.
Yeah.
I know last semester, me and one of my friends, impulse, 11 o'clock in the morning, I text you and text mom, hey, I'm going to Nashville for the day. We'll be careful. I'll text you when I'm there. I'll
Right,
text
yeah.
you when I'm headed back, and I'll text you when I'm back.
Right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Great. Had the best time ever.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about anything going on. Was just able to be a 19-year-old going on a shopping spree.
Right. Yeah.
But you definitely have to, like first semester of college, I wanted to go out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize real quick, what am I doing?
Mhm.
What is this? What is going out? Maybe once in a while, go listen to lots of music, come
Right.
hang out with some friends. It's great. Be smart.
Mm-hmm.
But when it starts becoming an every weekend occurrence and you're starting to have these just like, I don't want to do anything anymore. You're spending a whole day just laying in bed,
Mhm.
not wanting to do anything. You're just waiting to go out. What are you doing?
Mhm.
That day's gone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you don't realize that, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you do the same thing the next night.
Yeah.
You do
Right.
the same thing the next night.
Mhm.
Then before you, it's like a week that's gone by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's got it. So yeah, again, it's this recurring theme. What brings value to you?
Mhm.
What's the goal? What brings value to you? Doesn't mean you have to be a prude.
Right.
But if there's a recurrent thing that you're doing that's
Mm-hmm.
causing you grief or strife or complicating things, then you really have to question why you're doing it.
Right.
All right, last question. What what would you, if you were to have a T-shirt or you were to have a poster or a motivational saying on your tagline at your email from the bank or at the law office, what would it say?
Hmm.
I know. That's tough.
Lift heavy, be kind.
I
Yeah.
really like this one, but I'm gonna try to be original.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Something original.
I'd say honestly, my entire life, like people know me,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't consider myself like the popular kid.
Mhm.
I mean, people know me, but
Mhm.
I was never like invited to the birthday party of the class president or something like
Sure.
that.
Mhm.
Just things like that. And I think half of it was just because I was always myself.
Mhm.
Then that's not a bad thing at all, I don't
No.
think, because if I wasn't myself, then I wouldn't be able to take this emotional maturity
Mhm.
and use it to be like, these guys don't want to hang out with me, but they ask me for answers at school,
Right.
So it's like,
right. Right.
let's take a step
Right.
back here.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You don't want to be involved with me until you need something from me.
Yep.
I'm always myself.
Right.
You're faking it in front of all these people, and then when you're in a corner with 4 missing assignments,
Yeah. When you're struggling, who are you coming to?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So honestly, my T-shirt would definitely just say, "Be yourself,"
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, nothing really matters
Right,
except
yeah.
for you.
Right. Yeah.
You are worried about you.
Mhm.
This is a solo campaign in life. You'll have
Right.
Right.
you'll have your
Right.
NPCs, you'll have your
Right.
partners for a little
Yeah.
bit, you'll have your
Side
pets,
quests.
you'll have your side quests, you'll have all this stuff. But I'm a gamer.
Right.
It's a solo campaign
Right,
in this
yeah,
life.
yeah.
You'll have your very important people. You'll have those dramatic scenes. You'll have
Yep.
those cut scenes where they like, what even was that? That's not even
r-
related to this
Right.
story.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you'll forget about it.
Sure.
Mhm.
And then at the end of the day, you're trying to complete life as the best character you can be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So being yourself, be weird,
Mhm.
say what comes to your mind,
Right.
with the filter, of course,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
like,
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah. Know your audience, but
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I feel like I could always
Spare yourself some
like
trouble.
I was never really an outcast
Mm-mm.
because I was just nice. I'm just being myself. I'm just like
Mhm.
talking about weird stuff,
Mhm.
be interesting,
Right.
be somewhat energetic, be polite, be respectful, all this stuff. And I mean, it's made me who I am today. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got sucks. It's got bullies with it. It's got all this other stuff being
Sure.
left out, whatever.
It's part of the game, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
not
you're-
on easy mode.
No,
Yeah.
no. Life is
Right.
should add something. You have
Right.
like easy, medium, hard, veteran,
Yeah.
and then life.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah.
Life mode.
Life mode, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, it's, I don't know, just
Yeah.
be you.
I think that's beautiful.
mean-
I think that's beautiful, and I think you personify that perfectly. You know, there's there's not a whole lot of compromise on your character,
Yeah.
regardless of the situation.
Yeah,
So
and people think I'm like a heartless human because, you know, I mean, you guys, you've experienced this.
Yeah.
I've told you about this. I've told you about
Yeah.
this. You know,
Mhm.
everything, every like recent relationship I've tried to pursue.
Mhm.
You know, they disrespect me and I leave.
right, yeah, right.
Right, it's
what
not-
else is there to it?
What
Yeah.
else is there to
I've
it? Yeah,
told you why I don't like it.
right,
You continue to do it.
Yeah.
I'm out.
right,
Right.
You don't think I'm like heartless because I don't like care
Right.
about it the next day.
Right,
I
yeah.
mean, it sucked.
Yeah.
But
You're heartless
Right.
because you're not tolerating their
Right.
what they're
it's
dishing out.
heartless.
Right,
because
yeah,
I'm
right,
not
yeah,
putting
because
up
you're not
with
putting
it.
up with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Well, that your definition of heartless and mine are two totally
I
different
guess I'm
things. So,
heartless then.
right. Yeah.
So what?
Perfect.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely just be you.
I love it, dude. I love it. What about you?
Know your worth.
Yeah.
You got to know, you have to be confident in yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
have to know where you stand in situations. You also have to understand that that person also has feelings in the fact. But you also have to look at people are going to take advantage of you. If you're nice to everybody,
Yeah.
that's fine. But when they start, it becomes a parasitic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When they start latching onto you and holding on to you for their homework assignments or because they need advice or they're trying to, more commonly what you see when you get older is they start using you for your money.
You're their
When
you're their trauma dump.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's you have to know your value as a person. How do you see yourself? I see myself to this person's level or above. If you understand that some people are going to love the high school drama and all the other crap
Yeah,
that goes on, or
exactly.
who kissed who, or who
Start
called
it.
who names, right?
Start it.
Right.
That just meddle in this perpetual pool of just nastiness is what I'm going to look at it as. So that regards drama and just bad mouthing people. You have to rise above in a sense and know that this isn't going to, what does this have to do with me? Nothing. Okay, great. Why does this person keep talking to me like this? Well, I'm giving them the power. I'm letting them talk to me. I'm providing a situation for them to treat me like crap.
Right. Yes.
So leave the situation.
Right.
Eliminate situation. So you have to
100%.
know your value of the situation, what it compares to your time. Is it worth money? Is it worth your feelings? Is it worth you crying?
Mhm.
It's not.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's not worth any of that. And
Right.
you just have to know your worth and your value as a human being and understand that it's not worth the depressing toll that most of that
Yeah.
crap does and just feeds off of people.
Right. Yeah. 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 But I mean, I could not have said it better myself. So you guys are always it continue to amaze me and inspire me and make me proud and all that stuff. I love y'all very much. Thank you for being guests on the
Of course.
Better
Def-
Human podcast.
There we go.
Yeah, episode 4. Thanks, Dakota. Appreciate you, brother.
Dakota.
All right.
Killing it.
Good night, everybody.